Hello and welcome to the first edition of a new segment that I'm calling the Ultra Profiles Podcast. This is a bit of a longer intro as it's the first ever episode. If you want to just skip this and go straight to the podcast, I'll put a chapter in below so you can skip it. But essentially, this is a project I had in mind for quite some time. I originally contacted Rupert 6 months ago to do this, and it's taken until now, in the winter, to actually sit down and make the podcast. The idea is essentially that I can pick the brains of ultra athletes to try to learn from them, and you get to follow along and listen in while I do that. I think there are a lot of stories behind the scenes in ultra events. Hundreds of people riding for a long time to complete the events. A lot happens, a lot of training. So I'm hoping to dig in and try to find out as much as possible and put it all out there in podcast form. So I really hope you enjoy it. Any feedback, put it in the comments. Bear in mind, it's the first time I've ever done this. Much like the YouTube channel, I'm trying to learn as I go. And I have a full-time job, so it may not be completely polished, but I'll try and make an improvement each time I release a new episode, and hopefully they'll get quite polished at some point. You might notice in this one, I forgot to ask Rupert to turn his phone, so I had to use AI to create the rest of his room. So that's not what Rupert's house actually looked like, but got the job done. Anyway, we'll get into this episode. And in future, the intros will be a lot shorter. I hope you all enjoy it, and I'll see you all later. So I'm hoping Zoom isn't going to screw us over. All right. Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay. Welcome to the Ultra Profiles Podcast, the first ever edition. A podcast where I get to pick the brains of ultra athletes, and you get to listen in. And this week, I'm joined by Rupert Robinson. So I'm going to give a little bit of a longer intro because it's the first ever episode and a bit of background as to why Rupert's the first guest. So my first foray into ultra racing was about 2 years ago at All Points North, which you probably remember, maybe vaguely remember.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. My first edition, you were working at the start line, I think, as ambassador for Kinesis, correct?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll get to your edition shortly. Rupert showed up in my research for All Points North. The first video that came up on YouTube was, I believe the intro was something along the lines of, how does somebody race 1,000 kilometers, 15,000 meters of climbing on 1 hour sleep?
Yeah,
That
that's
sound
right.
familiar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
Bonkers. Yeah, so we'll get back to that. But essentially,
Okay.
a lot of time has passed since then. I've only had a few races, but since then I started the YouTube channel. And I always remember the conversation we had at the start of All Points North, my first race, and you gave me some really valuable tips, which thank you again.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you did. It was really, really useful.
Good.
Really useful. And it kind of got me thinking that actually, I wish I never waited so long to get into ultra racing because actually getting to the start line, meeting people like you and having conversations about ultra drew out information for me that I would never have got if I'd have just kept plugging away and waiting to feel like I was ready by myself. Since then, I started the YouTube channel and always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to start a podcast, and I always had Rupert in mind as being the first guest for that very reason. I'll probably start a bit further back if that's all right, because I
Sure.
feel like I'm guessing All Points North must have come a little way into your ultra career. I can't imagine that was your first race.
No, it was actually my first solo
Really?
race. Yeah, I'd only ever done one before, as a pair in 2019.
Wow. Okay, that's surprises me a bit. I would have expected, yeah, I would have expected you'd have had quite a few under your belt to pull that out of the bag.
So I did a lot of time trialing, 12-hour races,
Okay.
and that for 15 years prior
Wow.
to doing ultra stuff. I've always ridden a lot, so
Yeah.
um, that opportunity came up, um, to do that race in a part of Yorkshire, because I'm from Yorkshire, that I like, and I sort of jumped at the chance, not really knowing what I was doing, but had a
Yeah.
small inclination based on doing the Transalba as a pair.
Right. The Transalba.
Yeah, so that was the first
Yep.
one, the race around Scotland.
Yep. And what was that? Was that the same year or the previous year, did you say?
No,
Sorry.
so that was 2019,
Right, okay.
and then just before COVID, and then after COVID was All Points North.
Right. So who did you race the Transalba with? Someone you've raced that kind of longer distances with, or?
Well, just my main riding partner, Cav. We did, commute to work a lot. We've rode a lot together, and it was his
Uh,
idea. I jumped. Yeah, he said, "Do you fancy riding this?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah, why not?"
why not?
Straight away. I hadn't even seen the course, but knew it was over 1,000 miles. I was well up for it.
It's 1,000 miles, not 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
1,700 kilometers. Yeah.
Wow. Is there any link to Scotland before going in for that one, or just interested in the terrain?
Not really. I mean, I did the Land's End John O'Groats 2008,
Yeah.
sort of my first foray into some,
Okay.
technically wasn't called ultra cycling then, but I sort of did that solo. Um, but yeah, unbeknownst to me, I'd fall in love with Scotland after that trip. But it was just an opportunity to ride my bike all day with
Yeah.
a mate. So
Yeah. Wow. I did see. So I follow you on Strava, obviously, and I've seen the name Cav, so that answers that question. I wondered
yeah,
who. He's a local Brighton sort of way.
yeah.
East
So yeah,
Sussex lad, is he?
yeah. He lives in Sussex, so I've been riding with him for probably 10 years now in different places when we both worked together in the same place. So we'd meet up and ride in, sort of thing.
Wow. Is he still doing long distance events himself?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've he signed up for a few. We've done a couple of few other things together, some old axes and stuff like that.
Okay. Interesting. So Transalba first event. What did your what did your training look like for that? If you're going from shorter events, or what was your longest time trial going into it? Have you done any? Obviously, the Lands of John O'Groats. What's that? 1,800 miles?
Yeah, so that was 900 miles over 10
Oh, I
days.
was way off.
Yeah, but I wasn't really doing much cycling then. I just started getting into it around 2005, and that was my biggest sort of thing.
Okay,
But leading up to sort of the Transalba, I'd done a few 12-hour time trials, and then just riding all day before that sort of thing. So no specific training. It was just time on the bike.
interesting. So, what about bivvying and sleeping out and the survival aspect? Did you do much training in that
I did
regard?
none, and I've still done none. That's why I had no sleep because it
I
scared me
was,
a bit. So
yeah. Well, you had a really interesting strategy for all points off. And again, I'm going to work my way towards that because that's what really kind of like surprised me.
yeah,
Yeah, interesting. Have you had any sort of real difficult events in the lead up to All Points North and Transalba? Um, any real challenging events that you really struggled with?
not specifically. I mean, I'm a bit of a, I don't know, drill sergeant as it goes. I just like to ride and ride consistently quite hard,
Yeah,
much to a lot of people's annoyance. And I think that comes from the time trialing background. So, and the way I was brought into cycling with my club, at the beginning, 20 years ago, if you couldn't keep up, you were dropped. So you had to, I mean, it's not like that nowadays, but, it was a real war of attrition sort of thing.
interest sounds a bit like my local club. We got a bit of a reputation for a similar kind of sink or swim.
Yeah. I mean, people have got much faster now than they were then, but,
Yeah,
it was that kind of mentality.
yeah, I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. Okay, so only a few events before we get to that point. Um, and I think you were that you so you were there as either an ambassador or do you work for Kinesis or are you
I
ambassador
do.
for Kinesis? You
Yeah.
do work there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I
Living the
try and
dream.
live and breathe the bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just a bit. How long have you worked there for?
So I've worked with Kinesis 7 years now, but prior to that, I did 12 years with Evans Cycles.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Guessing
sort of coming up 20 years in the trade.
wow. And I'm kind of moved away from Evans probably at a fairly good time, I imagine.
Yeah, I
And
didn't think so at the time, perhaps,
no,
but certainly in hindsight, yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a good move.
So I'm guessing for all points north, then it was just the case of doing as much cycling as possible before you went in for that one,
Yeah, just
basically.
riding what I do, bigger commutes, longer weekend stuff. Done some night riding, not really thought about bivvying or anything like that. I was just, I'll just plow through the night, it'd be all right.
Yeah. So you rode all the way through the night a few times before the event as well.
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
times I've done some stuff. Yeah, I'm wasn't phased riding at night. It didn't bother me.
No. Did you find it difficult to begin with?
It's a little bit slower,
Yeah.
obviously, 'cause you can't see as well. But if you've got the route planned, you're concentrating more on where you're going than anything else. I found it okay.
Yeah. Do you wear prescription glasses on the bike?
No, but I probably need to now.
Yeah, I'm the
I didn't
same.
then.
I'm the
Yeah.
same. I'm short-sighted, but I can get by without just about. But it definitely slows me down.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay when it's not too windy.
Yeah.
I can see enough with the lights I'm using, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But anything close up now, yeah, I have to get the glasses out.
Yeah. So obviously just very determined to get right through the night. I found it really difficult once you get to sort of like 4 or 5 a.m. That's when it starts to get really difficult for me. You experience much of that?
I don't mind that time. For me, it's probably a little bit earlier when you're riding through places where you see people going to bed. The
Yeah.
lights going off,
Yeah.
curtains closing, past your bedtime. Yeah, once I get past 2 or 3 o'clock, you know, I feel okay. I've been through, cities when people have been kicked out of nightclubs and you're carrying on riding. So that's
Always
quite
funny.
entertaining.
Get the odd tow rag, jump out in the road and try.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess we'll move towards all points north then.
Yeah, the only one I won the short Transalba a couple of years back, and I've managed to stay in the top five in everything that I've done so far.
Yeah, I can see you pretty consistently about yeah, sorry. I must have remembered it incorrectly. It was 2 years ago that we spoke. So you probably mentioned the Transalba.
Yeah,
But that's one of the things. So the conversation that we had on the start line that kind of like knocked me back a little bit was I'd done some night riding and tried riding through the evening, and sometimes it's easier than others, but always have
yeah,
a point about sort of 4 or 5 a.m. Find it really difficult to stay awake, and either sometimes I'll have a little nap, or sometimes I'll put be able to push on through. But you mentioned that you managed to ride through 2 nights.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, the
you did,
second
didn't you?
night was a bit trippy at times. But,
Yeah,
you do see things, but at that point of the race, I didn't think that stopping would gain me. I'd lose some places, and I was determined to be. I
yeah,
wanted to be in the top 10. That was my goal.
yeah.
And,
You managed it.
yeah, but if I'd have stopped, every time I stop, I'm just thinking about other people and what they're doing, and therefore then I can't get to sleep if I'm trying to
Mm.
sleep.
Yeah,
So
it's difficult on the road, isn't it? I've heard of people like you heard of Angus Young?
yeah,
I've heard of him because our races on the road, it's not quite so easy. But I heard of a story of him that his tactic is to just sleep in the trail, lay across the trail, and then as soon as somebody comes to pass him,
right.
they have to go around with the free hub, and then he can get up and carry on. But we can't really
Oh,
do
that's interesting.
that.
Yeah,
We
I
can't really
suppose
do
the
it.
whole point is to be different because you're not going the same way as everybody, but
No,
good
no,
tactic.
yeah. So just to give people a bit of a flavour if they don't know what All Points North is, you'll know the area much better than me. But we're talking roughly 1,000 kilometers,
Yeah,
roughly a double Everest, pretty much in elevation.
yeah,
Um, and I'd say, in my experience, I attended it twice in kind of a race of many personalities. The North can be quite difficult to ride in. I find
yeah,
the conditions it's beautiful, but it can be brutal at the same time.
yeah. I mean, the second time I did it, we had rain for the first, I don't know, first for a night and then most of the next day. Just rained all the time, and that can be quite demoralizing. And that's
Yes.
probably what gets to me the most. I mean, I don't mind riding in the rain, but constantly being wet is a bit
Yeah.
annoying, irrelevant of what kit you've got on.
Yes. I know
You're
exactly
just
how
wet.
you I know exactly how
Yeah.
you feel. The addition that you mean? Is it? Do you know Katie Kookaburra? Have you heard of her on
I
YouTube?
know, yeah, I know who she is. Yeah,
No,
yeah, she
yeah,
wrote that. She wrote the wet one.
yeah. And did she wear like
Yeah,
pink?
marigolds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
about that. And there's another guy that I follow, Mark Agar. I don't know if you've heard of him.
yeah. I know who he is.
You
Yeah,
know him?
yeah,
He wrote the same edition and was. I met him the first time on London, Edinburgh, London, and I think it was the year before. That must have been 2021. And he was telling me how rough it was. That he had to pull into a bike shop. The event should have been cancelled. It sounded pretty brutal.
yeah. I mean, he's from Sheffield, I think, anyway. So
Yeah,
he
yeah,
should have
yeah,
had
yeah,
more fair warning than most of us. But yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah, for
definitely
sure.
a. You definitely question your choices when it's that bad.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything from that you picked up that you'll change on races in the future? If you see the forecast and the rains, it's going to rain solidly. Apart from just putting up with it, anything you kind of picked up that you'll change next time?
Well, usually I try not to spend too much time looking at the weather. I just crack on. If it's gonna, yeah, if it's gonna rain and you're not stopping for the night, for instance, then you just have to get on with it. I mean, kit choice is good, some good quality waterproofs, just to keep you warm rather than dry, as it were.
Yes.
Um, but it can, yeah, just play with the mind a bit. It's definitely mind games over fitness when
Yeah,
the weather's rubbish.
definitely. Do you find that? I think I find when it rains, you've got a certain amount of time before it's coming in. There's no real stopping it. I haven't found a way yet to stay completely dry.
I
Warmness
don't
is
think there is.
no, no.
I think it's those that can grin and bear it the best, you know, get up the tree, as it were.
Yeah, completely agree. And my last edition of All Points Off, I didn't finish it because of the rain. I It was just brutal. I managed, I think it may be a little bit of route choice as well, but heading into the Scottish borders, I had a road that was literally must have been a foot and a half deep for a couple of hundred yards. And I got most of the way through it, turned around, headed south, and just thought I can't do it. And that was my breaking point. So I think
Right, yeah.
it does.
Yeah, I think I remember you put a picture up, didn't you?
Yeah, and the
How
video,
bad it was, yeah.
it was brutal. But you finished that year.
Yes, yeah, that year I managed to come fourth, so I was pretty pleased at
Oh
my
wow.
performance. I had a bit more sleep. I think I had about 2 hours the second year. But
Oh, okay.
I mean, once the first night doesn't really count, does it? You're
No.
starting late, so you're a bit excited. You go through the first night, and then you're into the day, and then you're riding, and then second night becomes the first night, and then that passes, and all of a sudden you're into the next day, and you're thinking, oh well, I can finish soon. I can finish tomorrow if I just keep going, and then you're into technically the third night, and then
Yeah.
that's when it all gets a bit trippy.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
bet.
a bit hallucinogenic, a bit, your mind's not where it should be. I might take a wrong turn. I'm not paying enough attention. My body's telling me that I should have a sleep, but I'm too stubborn and I want to finish.
I know
You
exactly what
know,
you mean.
that kind of determination to succeed and get a better time and position than I did previously.
Would you say there's kind of like red flags for you that as soon as it gets beyond a certain point, you know it's time to just have a little nap. Um,
Yeah, it's probably when
yeah,
I've had when I'm asleep on the bike.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
your eyes close, and all of a sudden, you're
Yes,
awake and you think, right, maybe I'll sit down for 10 minutes and have a drink, have something to eat, and sort
yeah,
of gather your thoughts, as it were.
yeah. I think it's good to mention from a responsibility point of view that it's something that we all do, don't we? And riding through the first night as well, when it's a late start. I think All Points North starts at 8 p.m. I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
So if you have a nap during the day, riding through one night, it's not too difficult, is it? And but you have certain triggers, like falling asleep on the bike, can't hold your eyes open, then you know it's a bit too much. But riding through the night can be safe. Missing a night's sleep, not always, too dodgy, but
yeah.
yeah, maybe two, 3 nights.
Well, I think that's why they introduced it, didn't they? Introduced the
Yeah,
mandatory stops, and that's fine if everybody's doing that. Then I'd have
yeah,
no problem with that because you're not losing anything.
no,
All I'm thinking is, the race is won by the least amount of stopping.
True.
Not necessarily speed. Everybody's riding at the same speed, aren't they? Once you get going, which isn't mega fast. You just
No.
turning the pedals, making sure that you're stopping less than somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the hardest part, if you agree, is minimizing your stops, always moving forwards.
Yeah,
Often the
yeah,
most
less
difficult
faff.
part. Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's probably the right thing to do, introducing mandatory sleep stops on the second night. Um, it came just at the right time for me. I think 2, 3 hours sleep is
Yeah,
plenty, isn't it?
yeah, like you say, if everybody's doing it, then it's fine. I've done other races where I've had an hour and a half or 2 hours, and whilst the first 10 minutes you feel a bit rough, you do generally feel way better once you've had
Yeah,
a bit of shut eye. Definitely.
yeah, yeah. I think in some cases, just a few minutes, like 10, 15 minutes. I managed at one point to ride through. I heard it. Do you know Jenny Graham,
Yeah,
Scottish cyclist?
yeah.
I heard a story about her that her tactic was when the sleepies get too much and she can't stay awake on the bike. What she does is she rests her arms in her aero bars and closes her eyes, and then as she falls over, it wakes her up, and that's enough for her to keep on moving.
All right, just that little bit.
Apparently,
Yeah,
I tried one of the Audaxes, getting ready for Paris Brest Paris. I had to do a few Audaxes to qualify.
yeah, yeah.
And one of them was, I think it was about 26, 27 hours. And I thought, right, I'm not going to take any gear, try and ride all the way through. And when it gets too much in the morning, I'm going to try what Jenny tried. I tried it and it didn't work for me.
You're nearly lying down. It'd be easy to go to
Yeah.
sleep, wouldn't it?
I ended up sleeping on a bus stop bench for 15, 20 minutes. That was better. But
Yeah.
that at least 15, 20 minutes made a big difference.
Those bus stop benches are surprisingly comfy when you're tired.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Prop your bike up against you.
Yeah, yeah.
Plenty.
Especially if you get one that's covered with
Yeah.
just a small doorway, then you're out the wind as well.
Yeah, that's something that the North has really got going for it is good
Mm,
selection of bus stops.
yeah.
I think people in the Audax world or the endurance cycling world kind of will get it that seeing a good bus stop or a good spot is quite exciting.
It is, yeah. Or an
You,
outside tap.
yeah, 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 yeah. You point out to your like non-cycling friends and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I found a really good on. What was it on? It was on All Points North, actually. Um, in I forget the name of the castle on the Scottish border, but the checkpoint the year I met you, there was a really good public toilet next to a
Oh,
castle.
Bramber Castle, wasn't it?
I think it began with C.
Was it?
Um,
I can't remember. Oh, not the year that I met. Yeah.
I think it began with C, but it's right on the Scottish border. But the public toilet was it basically had an entrance, a 6 foot by 6 foot square, and then as you go in and around the corner, there were toilets and sinks. So to all the people I described it to thought they thought I was a nutter, but actually
Yeah.
I had shelter, I had a door, I had an ensuite toilet.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I do.
Yeah. Wow. 1 hour sleep. So what was he? Do you remember what the your time was that year on 1 hour sleep roughly?
So I think the overall time was about around 60 hours.
Okay, that's fast.
So I think both of them I'd done around 60 hours. I mean, the checkpoints are generally in the same-ish area, but obviously the route planning is key because you're doing it yourself.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
the first year I did too much climbing on the route that I'd planned. Second year I did try to get a lot less climbing, but obviously the distance was still around the same.
Okay, that's good. I was going to say maybe a bit more distance, but better route planning.
Yeah, I spent a bit more time. I'd learnt a bit on the first one. I just, pretty much used Komoot, which is great,
Yeah.
and then took it as sold when it takes you down that tiny weird
Yeah.
pathway that isn't
Yeah.
really rideable.
We've all
I
been
thought,
there.
yeah, next time I need to make sure I've looked at this in detail.
Yeah.
Google Street Plan and viewed it all, looked at places to sleep, bus
Yeah.
stops, fueling points, all those things, and been a bit more savvy
Tag them
about.
on the map.
Yeah, yeah, and just have little markers. I've got a little bullet point thing I'll just keep in the top tube bag to remind me that something's coming up if I need it.
Yes.
Because you
But
forget these things, and when you're tired, you really it's really quite hard to work out.
yeah, I think that's really important. The amount of planning you have to do for these events, sometimes, depending on the length of the event, hours and hours and hours of prep. Doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly either, does it?
No, no, not at all. No, I mean if it's a pre-planned route,
Yeah,
that's less time, but I'll still have a look at the route
for
based on
resupply.
what Yeah, I'll still go through it, but I don't have to plan it if the route's already been made, sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah, I think I've with All Points North and the TCR, I've had a couple of events where I've had to do a lot of planning. So I'm trying to focus my sort of field of view on events that don't require route planning at the moment.
Yeah,
It's quite
I
nice, isn't
find
it?
that they're not necessarily easier, but they are, I don't know, maybe more enjoyable. Everybody's going the same way. You know where you are in the pecking order. If
Yeah,
you want to have a look at the tracker, you can. I
yeah.
tend not to because I don't want to get too distracted by that.
No,
But so I might get the odd message,
I'm
from a
guessing
friend.
you just want to focus on hammering on for as
Yeah,
long as you
pretty
possibly
much.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah. So do you think then if your second edition of All Points North had more sleep, do you think that improved the time?
I don't think so. I think because it's a completely different route,
Mm,
and the weather was worse. I probably kept moving to keep warm.
yes.
Um, And that was the reason in the first one I didn't sleep much because when I did try and sleep, I got too cold, which
Ah,
then
okay.
kept me awake. And I thought, well, if I'm awake, I might as well be turning the pedals, even
That
if it
makes sense.
was slow. You were still moving, um, because it wasn't
Yeah.
till those small hours that you get the tired. You get really tired, and then that's when you're normally asleep. So, but then that's when it's the coldest.
Yeah.
And
That
I
makes
hadn't
a lot
taken
of
a
sense.
bivvy or anything like that. I was just gonna literally lie down but that's where I could and see if I could have a nap.
No sleeping gear at all.
No, I just had a
Right.
puffer jacket and that I just stuck that on over the top of what I was wearing.
Oh, it's so cold though when you got to try and sleep like that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I learned, I was just, oh, maybe I should have brought a sleeping bag, but then, you try not to take tons of stuff because then it weighs even more, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard trying to get the balance right of
Yeah,
too much ballast and then being comfortable and surviving.
yeah. But you feel
I,
it on the climbs if you've got too much.
yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult. It's really hard balance to strike, isn't it? Trying to get the right level of robustness. Like my bike's aluminium, it's not carbon.
Yeah.
The actual bike's not too light. Um, Sleeping bag, bivy bag, but it sounds like yours is fairly light. I'm guessing you race on a kinesis, obviously.
Yeah.
Is it you race aluminium, steel, carbon?
So I've done aluminium and most of the stuff's done I've done on tie.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How'd you find
So
that?
the shorter ones say 400 mile plus, maybe 700. I might not need a dynamo. I can sort of blag it with a power bank. It might just be one night. Other times, the longer ones I've done it on the tie bike with the dynamo and the charging and all those little pieces that you don't have to worry about so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently got a dynamo. Well, say recently, back about March, I got it fitted. I think it's game changer, but there's a real argument now for whether it's necessary. Batteries are so good, and depending on how often you stop, you can charge
Yeah,
a fairly decent power bank in an hour in some cases, can't you? I like the dynamo though. No stress
yeah,
of
but
like,
do you want to stop for an hour?
sorry?
But do you want to stop for an hour? That's the
Yeah,
balance, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
the I've got the little thin wave that charges the
The little
phone.
box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that runs off the dynamo. Then I might charge my headphones. If the phone's okay, I'll stick that in my pocket and charge my headphones. The Bluetooth ones.
I do.
You know.
Apparently I'm running out of, no, we got 10 minutes. Sorry, I got a pop up because I'm not on premium with Zoom. I get half an hour apparently, but I think if it runs
Okay,
out, we can just do another
fair
one
enough.
straight after. I think. Sorry, completely killed that. I just had a pop up that closed the whole screen.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll get used to this. But you are the first one ever, so I'm sure it'll get easier. I'll get less nervous. Sorry, you said the sim wave.
Yeah, so that running the, charging a few things off there, carry a small battery pack as well, something that'll, depending on the distance, I know that I can, if I'm stopping overnight, like the Transalbas, it's a long race,
Yeah,
stopping every night, as it were. You can
yeah,
charge stuff, extra battery pack on the GPS, and all these little things, all add up to making it not too much of a worry if I don't stop.
yeah. So how long was the Transalba? Remind me that I think that's quite.
So that was 1,700 kilometers.
Wow. Okay.
But we stopped. But when we did it as a pair the first year, we stopped every night bar the last night where we
Okay.
rode through.
Yeah.
So did
Hotels
it.
or bivvying.
No, no Vivian. I've still never done Vivian.
Still not once.
No, no.
What were you doing then?
So like hostels,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, maybe some random B&B that we found. With that one, you could book stuff in advance. So we had an idea for the first few days how much we'd cover, and kind of pre-booked those, and then did it on a whim afterwards.
Okay. I
But
think it's probably the right idea. It's not a huge amount of weight with the bivvy, but it's noticeable.
I think if you're going to sleep, then you might as well, for something that long,
Yeah.
then you want a good kit, don't you? Good bit of sleep because you're just fatigued to
Yeah.
hell. But if you don't have a few hours, then you're just gonna feel it even more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think there's a cost element. I think that's the only. I'm a massive cheapskate.
Yeah,
That's the only thing is if you, I find it hard to fork out for a hotel if I'm going to sleep there for 2 hours, 3 hours. So
yeah. I mean, some of the hostels were or bunk houses were challenging, let's say. But yeah, we so 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours maybe you were head down. But
okay. Would you bring the bikes in?
yeah, I mean, if they had space, depending on what it was like, sometimes we had to leave them outside locked up. But
That sounds
again,
good.
again, it's a cost thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
You don't want to. It's cost you tons of money. That's why I've never done the TCR. I mean, the cost must be immense, for that amount of travel and
yeah. And then I did it this time and scratched in Munich. So uh, there was a lot of cost that I avoided by only making
yeah,
a few days. But it was quite a lot of money to pedal in to an event and then scratch right at the beginning. But
yeah. I mean, it was an iconic start, wasn't it, Roubaix
that was
and
amazing.
going up Koppenberg and everything. But
Yeah,
you know,
it was
but once you
amazing.
get the other side towards the Alps, it was then or never, wasn't it? Really?
Basically, yeah, yeah. For me, getting to Munich was the jumping off point. I was injured in about an hour riding south of Munich. I think you start to hit the foothills of the Alps. So
Mm.
I knew that it was there was no way. My uh left knee was twice the size of my right. It was huge. So, but yeah, it was quite a big cost. But I think you did when we were chatting. I'm sure you said you've been considering it. I'm sure you said you were
Yeah, I mean, every time the entries say they're going to open, I think about it, but then
think better of
decide
it.
not to.
Yeah,
Scare myself off.
yeah,
I mean, it's the distance probably that attracts me the most. Riding that sort of distance when you're on the bike, you haven't got to think about anything but when you're next eating.
yes.
It literally everything else stops, doesn't it? Really, you're just cracking on with what you're doing and eating and looking at the scenery. Um,
That was what I was looking forward to is the change of cultures, getting into Eastern Europe, mostly getting over through Slovenia, Croatia.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I was really looking forward to that. And unfortunately, I've got a place next year for Bihard, so I'm going to try and skip out all of that section through Europe and go straight to the Balkans. At least
right.
if if I don't get through there in the TCR again, at least I'll have experienced it in Bihar. I just fly there.
All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah, the distance quite 4,000 K. It's quite a big time commitment as well, isn't it? That's not
Well,
easy.
it's at least 3 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah,
Traveling, riding,
yeah,
racing. Getting there, getting back.
yeah,
It's a bigger commitment out of your holiday entitlement. If you average sort of working 4 weeks, isn't it?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And you got a family and partner, and you got to have a pretty understanding partner, I think, full stop in this sport. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
coming off for
yeah,
2, 3 weeks.
yeah.
So what have you got in the books? Have you got anything planned for next year already?
So I've entered the Land's End John O'Groats Audax.
Oh,
So
nice.
that route is 1,400 kilometers, but you've only got 4.5 days.
Okay.
So there's, I think,
So
100. It's 100. I think it's 116 hours or something. 4.8 days or something.
it's about
So
300K a day, something like that.
yeah. So
Roughly.
you know, was it 3 days, 300s and a 200?
At least you've done it before, so you know
Right.
what to expect.
Yeah, I mean it is lumpy down Cornwall, but that was
Yeah,
a few years ago. I mean, I rode there last week,
still
but
lumpy.
yeah, it is lumpy as short and sharp they are, 25
Yeah,
percenters, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
great scenery. Yeah,
Whereabouts in Cornwall were you riding?
I was in St Ives, but I rode right round the coast,
I
Land's End,
saw.
and
I did
yeah,
see that on Instagram actually. Quite a
yeah,
long route, wasn't it?
yeah. I was doing 200K, so I made sure I covered right way around the coast. Um,
It's a long, slow 200K down there.
yeah, it wasn't the fastest 200 I've done, let's say.
Yeah, I went through that way a little while ago. I bumped into a local guy, and he gave me some sort of pointers on avoiding some hills heading down towards Newquay. And he mentioned Land's End John O'Groats because the route comes past the little fishing villages just north of Newquay. And I cut quite a bit of it off, and I'm quite glad I did. But I did think of the Land's End John O'Groats route, having to come through there and deal with that, like the 25,
Yeah,
30%, some of
yeah,
them.
yeah. There are. There's loads of them.
Yeah. And then have to crack on to Scotland.
Yeah, they're definite stingers.
That's a set route. I'm guessing you haven't got to plan that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want that job, I don't think, creating that route.
yeah. So it's a set route. Had a look at this year's. Um, there's checkpoints on the way and places where you can stop and have a sleep as well, like halls
Okay.
where they are. Yeah, so
Ah,
it's so I don't know too much about. I've entered, but there's not so much info yet because obviously it's nearly a year away, sort of thing.
okay.
Um, but I was asked if I wanted to join a group of lads from Scotland that I've got to know through the ultra distance sort of um, groups. The sort of community of the ultra distance is how I've got to know lots of people like yourself. And then I got asked to do this audax with some chaps from Scotland who I've met a couple of times.
Well, nice.
So that I've kept
They
in
already had a
contact
group
with.
going.
Yeah, so there's four of us going to do it together, but they had three, and I was asked if I wanted to be the fourth person. So sort of
Well,
we could
that's
do it
really
as a little
cool.
team.
What about the logistics of that then? If you're going to be up and down, maybe I'm guessing most people probably know the name of the event, Lance and John O'Groats, but it's the entire length of the UK from the most south-westerly point to the most north-easterly. So
That's right. Yeah,
logistically, for us where we live, I've considered it as pretty difficult because obviously getting from one end to the other is fine, it's the event. But getting to the start line and then getting home from the finish,
yeah.
pretty difficult.
I
Uh,
mean, it's getting home from the finish. So we did it, like I mentioned before, I did it in 2008, but I
yeah,
had my wife and my three children supporting. They were much younger then. So it took us 3 days to drive home because it was such a long way back.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because the length of Scotland is virtually the length of England anyway on its own.
Yeah, in
So
a car. Yeah, I think
yeah,
as soon as you get
five of us
there,
in a car. Yeah,
takes just as long to do that small little section as it does through the whole of England.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So what's your plan
But
this time to get back? You flying, train?
they talk about riding back, but probably won't. Yeah. So, because my wife and I go to Scotland quite a bit,
Yeah,
I'm hoping that she'll come up to see me at the finish, and then have a couple of days there and drive back, sort of thing.
So
That's
you haven't wangled that one quite just yet.
Oh yeah, she takes no encouragement. She'll come with
Oh
for
no.
Scotland. Yeah, yeah, we really like going up to
Okay.
Scotland. So
I've seen
any
the
any
I was going to say I've
any
seen a few
any
posts of you up in Scotland way, so I know you're up. I know you're up there a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean it's not local, obviously, and it is a bit of a drive, but I mean the riding is amazing. It's just so cool. It's the scenery, the even the people, they're just so welcoming.
Yeah, I think you find that I find that in the UK, the further north you go, probably from sort of Midlands upwards, the sort of friendliness level goes from pretty good to like really good. The further
Yeah,
north,
yeah,
the better it
yeah,
seems to get.
exactly.
Mm. Yeah, and the conditions are gorgeous. It's wet quite often in Scotland, but if you get it when it's dry, some of the most amazing scenery imaginable.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah, for
breakfasts are pretty
sure.
good too.
Yeah,
I did a ride once from. I was meant to be going for a ride with a friend around Sheffield, and he didn't come. But I still had the train ticket, so I thought I'll do a practice for London over London, and rode from Sheffield to the Scottish border, and then back down to Portsmouth.
yeah.
Had a Scottish breakfast in um, what's the name of the place where people go to get married?
Oh, Gretna Green.
Gretna Green. Had a Scottish breakfast there, headed south. And as soon as I turned south, I felt the wind in my face. I thought, oh no. I thought it was going quite well
Well, the
all the way back.
prevailing wind goes that way, doesn't it?
All the way back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going the right way. So have you had any, I'm not going to keep you all night, but have you had any times that you've failed in an event and not managed to get to the end? And um, what did it teach you if you did? Or have you just beasted it all the way through to all of them?
So I've done a few now. I've probably done about, I don't know, 7 or 8, but I haven't scratched on any as yet, touch wood, but I have been close a couple of times.
Wow.
Um, the solstice sprint that I did
Yes.
um, early this year, so I won round Wales. I had a bit of a bad back to start with, and
Right.
the first day was surprisingly hot, cramping, and my back was giving me real jip that I really thought about it. But after sleeping in a bus stop and sort of having a little chat with myself, I cracked on. So
Really? Do you think that helped
yeah,
laying on the hard floor maybe helped it a little bit?
yeah. I mean, it was one of them tiny, skinny little benches, and I got on it and I didn't move. And I think I did an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Just like a
Um,
log.
yeah, literally just didn't move.
Brilliant.
And then sort of the following day wasn't as hot. Managed to get more fluids in, and it felt okay.
And you
But
finished that one pretty strongly.
yeah, and the Wild West country that I did, again, that's down sort of
Cornwall, Southwest,
yeah,
isn't it?
that so lumpy that
Really?
some of the climbs were horrendous. The checkpoint at the top of a 25% one that took me, half an hour to get up. I was thought, yeah, I'm not doing this.
No.
But I did crack on. You know, one thing to think about is everybody's in the same boat. It's
Yeah.
hard for everybody. People
Yeah.
aren't cruising up them climbs. Nobody is. You just
No.
got to go at your own pace.
You've obviously got a pretty strong mental, pretty high level of mental resilience. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
it like I said before, it's all mental.
Yeah.
Physical. If you've entered, you can ride the distance.
Yes.
Everybody must know they can ride the distance if they've entered these things,
Yeah.
but it's what plays on your mind.
Yeah, which is
You know,
difficult, I think. If there's anything there
if
eating away at you at the beginning, then
yeah, yeah.
there's only so many hours you can ride before that works its way in enough to.
Oh yeah, I've listened to enough music. It keeps it at bay.
Yeah. Yeah. You listen to a lot of heavy metal, actually. I think,
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I
yeah.
do. I do like to listen to stuff, especially I don't when I'm riding with friends, but when I'm on my own, yeah, I'll to podcasts, an audio book,
I'm the
some
same.
metal, some drum and bass, anything that's pretty fast. If
Yeah,
I'm feeling tired, keeps me going.
and heavy. I'll be honest, there've quite a few times because you put the names of the bands in your Strava file, so I've listened to a
Yeah,
few,
yeah,
and I picked up a few decent In Flames. Picked up a few bands
yeah,
from Strava that actually look pretty decent, but some of them maybe a little bit too heavy for my.
yeah,
I like heavy metal.
yeah. The more brutal it is, the better it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you mention Solstice Sprint because I saw that you were doing that event and completely unrelated. I just happened to be heading to see some friends in Wales. And my partner and I, we really like to wild camp. Like there's pictures, is all sort of wild camping pictures.
Yeah,
And we went, I'd ridden over Gospel Pass earlier in the year. And I said to my other half, I'll take you to this really good place, Gospel Pass. It was a great ride. And I saw somewhere we can camp. So we camped this evening in June or July. And the following morning, we left quite early, and I just saw loads of people coming past, like one every 5, 10 minutes. Obviously, ultra racers with numbers,
yeah,
sleeping gear and bags. But what's going on here? I managed to flag one down, and it turned out it was Solstice Sprint. And I was like, what? I know someone doing this race. And so I pulled over and checked online, and you'd already gone through. Funnily enough, I literally I was sleeping on the edge of Gospel Pass, and you'd ridden over it. Like I think you came over in the night or in the
yeah. So
early hours.
it's a beast of a climb. I didn't really see
Yeah,
anything. All I remember was I was climbing a lot in the dark. I could see
yeah,
a light every now and then in front, and that was the target, as it were. But
yeah.
yeah, I could see by what the Garmin said on the climb profile it was going to take me a while. I didn't actually realize that's where I was at the time. But I'd like to do it in the daytime and have a look.
I've done it in the daytime. It's beautiful, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
bet. Yeah.
I did think of you, and but yeah, I'm sure when I checked, I was like, wow, like we were sleeping on the edge of the mountain, and you come over like 4 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely pitch black.
Yeah, it's a beautiful climb. I think you were was it sixth on that one?
Yeah, I was pleased with that. Yeah,
I would
came
be.
sixth, just under 50 hours, which was a goal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was quite repetitive near the end. I seemed to be riding the same bit of road for miles and miles. I thought I'd gone wrong, kept checking. I think that's probably the tiredness. I thought I'd gone the wrong way and ended up on the same road.
Some
But
sort of
I
limbo.
was, yeah, I was all right. I was doing where I should, but it was like village after village that looked the same, and it was getting a bit annoying, if I'm honest. I was getting a bit angry on myself.
Is that
So
mid Wales?
yeah, yeah, it's
I
coming
think
back from Wales, sort of towards the Warwick, where the finish was. So yeah, it did all look the same.
it was kind the route was kind of along the Welsh border, right? Up along over Hay through Wales
Yeah,
and back down
yeah,
through England into okay, yeah,
yeah,
quite a lumpy
yeah,
one. Yeah, six amazing. I'd be I think if I ever manage to get in the top 10, I'll be over the moon in a race.
yeah.
So I'll be
I
I'll
mean, I
have to
was sitting. I took it easy because of my back and I was sitting in the top 20, and I was quite happy with that until I got a message saying, "Oh, you're in the top 10, keep it going," and I'm
yeah,
like, "Oh right,
fire.
okay, yeah, I'm obviously doing all right." And then just sort of plugged away. I did have a look at the tracker though on the second night to see who was in front and who was behind. I knew that I
Oh,
couldn't catch the person that was in fifth, but the person that was in seventh, we toed and fro a couple of times. Even stopped and had a chat when we stopped at a co-op. Just to you know,
any mind games?
psych each other out. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm feeling all right. How are you feeling?
yeah, I'm
Both
feeling
looking
great.
like crap. Yeah.
I might ride through.
Yeah. 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 You say all that, don't you?
Uh,
Yeah. Definite mind games. But
definitely.
again, it's all yourself, isn't it?
For sure. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And Wild West Country as well. I'm planning the dates and things, but that's what I was thinking about swapping All Points North for this next year. Do you think it's kind of comparable to All Points North? Would you say it's similar?
I'd say it's the toughest one I've done.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All
The
Points
Rob
North.
Gardiner, the chap, he likes a steep climb. Let's
Really?
say. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll have a think about that one then and see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many races now, isn't there? You could do
Yeah,
one every month or every other week, especially during the summer. There's tons. I was looking at stuff today. There's just so many, and then finding time to do them and the cost. And if you're staying in the UK, it's a bit easier, but anything abroad is, Ireland, for instance, or
I saw one actually. I was considering that maybe right up your street. Actually, have you seen an event called the? I think it's called the Equinox on the Loop. It's a
yeah,
mouthful.
I've
Equinox on the
entered
Loop.
it.
Have you?
Yeah, so it's part of the Solstice series.
I think I'm sure I saw that. I've got two in my internet browser. Like I'll apply for them when my other half says that I'm free. But that's one of them. It looks really good.
Yeah, so Liam, the chap that organises that, as he did the solstice sprint, which is on the summer solstice, but now there's a smaller alley cat slash all points north thing on winter solstice. So it's 10
Okay.
checkpoints
Yeah.
around 200k, and that's the 22nd of December. So I've entered that, and then there's the
22nd of
Omni
December.
Loop. There's the Omni Loop in March, and then the other Equinox one in September, I think. So there's four in a series that you can do.
Interesting. You say you're going to do
Yeah.
several of them or all of them or
So I won't do the solstice sprint next year because I did it this year, but I've
yeah.
entered the other three. Once you've done
Okay.
all four, there's like the Pan Celtic. If you've done all of them, there was like that separate race for people that have done it all.
Is
It's
there?
kind of it's kind of that setup.
What's the extra race called?
Well, they haven't announced it. I
Ah,
think it was like the Opus Magna for the
Magnum Opus. Yeah, I saw that for
that
the
that that
yeah.
thing, yeah,
Yeah.
for the Pan Celtic. So kind of that sort of thing.
Interesting. Ah,
So it
yeah.
sort of already gets you hooked in.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. The Omniloop looks really good. I think it's points-based system, right? So you do laps of three different courses, different
Yeah,
elevation and distances, and you get points per lap.
yeah,
So that's interesting. No route planning, but definitely a lot of strategy.
yeah. It's just like a fat time trial, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah, that's why after talking to you, I was like, oh, I reckon that might be right up your
yeah,
street. Already
yeah,
entered.
yeah. When he announced it, because he sent out some stuff to the ones that had done the solstice before, said, "I'm thinking of these. We're going to do these. If anyone's interested, we can enter now." So I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll get them in the diary then."
All over that.
Yeah,
Interesting. Once I get registered for that, I'll let you know then. And it's over, yeah, it's a fixed time, isn't it? So everyone's racing at the same time, just different.
yeah,
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 I'll get hold of you then if I definitely go.
yeah, yeah. It's in
Um
Warwick, so it's not too far.
no, no, exactly. I quite like the idea of a couple of more local ones. South of England is fairly
Yeah,
local.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice. Well, mate, I don't want to keep you all night. It is 8:45.
Oh, is
Um,
it? Nice one.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, but it's been great to chat to you. And I've got one more question, which is a bit of a cheesy one, but a lot of the people that watch my channel are at this. That's my camera turning off. We can leave that one. A lot of people that watch my channel are at the start of their ultra journey. So
Yeah,
part of the reason I wanted to put these together is that it's really good. I can have these chats similar to we did at All Points North, and I can pick your brains, try to kind of like learn from people. Everyone's really willing to share, which is really nice. But I can share it with my YouTube audience, and they can learn at the same time. So people that are kind of at the start of their journey, if you could go back before you got into any of this ultra business and give yourself any kind of advice or tips or anything that you go back and tell yourself, anything you do differently.
yeah. I mean, just for people that are starting out, it's just spend time in the saddle, get used to your setup, be comfortable riding for long distances. There's plenty of Facebook groups and other things now for people to ask questions and advice. The community's great; it gives you
Mm.
everything you need. You're
Yeah.
always going to get a few different opinions based on kit choice, for instance, but nothing's never wrong until you've tried it and done it yourself.
Hmm.
So if you're interested, then yeah, just crack on and have a go. Get something entered.
Yeah.
It's nerve wracking and that. But once you're at the start line, you've done all the prep. You just got to finish it off.
Yeah. See it through. I think that's
Yeah,
good advice, and I think actually one of the things that I would probably say to myself. I feel like I put starting an event off quite a bit and did my own thing, trying to build up and build up. Um, and getting onto the start of All Points North that year, I met you and met other people and got kind of stuck in. And the rate of progression went from kind of steady to just like a hockey stick. So
yeah.
I'd agree with that. No, I really appreciate your time, mate. And I did.
No worries.
I put this to you back in June. It's been 6 months. So you're very
That's all
patient.
right. You never know. One day we'll get together,
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
ride. Yeah,
definitely. If not at the Omniloop, then I quite often ride to Bournemouth and back. It's quite a nice
yeah.
100
I
mile.
mean, I go that way quite often.
Okay,
You know.
go for a spin, go for a cafe ride.
Yeah, yeah. I'm up for that.
Definitely. Okay, well, I'll let you get back to your evening. Thanks again for your time, and I'm gonna stop the recording.